The process of effectively and powerfully creating is not one that generally comes easy. For those who have found success from the outside, it can be like, oh, they got so lucky, or they're just talented. But on the inside, there was a lot of challenge and work and growth in order to get there. Welcome to Tapping Creativity, a podcast for the creative community. Yes, it's a podcast for you. Whether you're looking for insight, inspiration, or community, you found yourself in the right place. My name is Matthew Temple. I am the host. And on this podcast, we go into questions, inspirations, challenges of the creative process. It's about connecting with other artists, hearing what other people are struggling with, their wins, their challenges. If you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe, follow, share. If you really like what you hear, give us a thumbs up or give us some kind of review. And with that, let's hop into this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Tapping Creativity, and today we are embarking on a new section of the Tapping Creativity journey. Now, you may or may not know that I wrote this book, The Creative's Handbook, and it is really a manual for working out your own creative process. If you have a creative process that works really well for you, well then it might not be quite as exciting, though it also really dives into like what happens when you come to some of those challenges, whether it's writer's block, creator's block, sort of the different things that come at you. You know, we all, well, maybe not we all, but most of us have challenges that will come up from time to time. And understanding how that's a part of the creative process is pretty valuable. And that is also one of the pieces here. However, I'm not here to sell you the book today. That said, if you'd like a copy of it, you can go onto the website, matthewctemple.com/handbook. You can get a hard copy or a soft copy. But the good news is today you don't have to do that. I'm basically going to go through this book over the course of the next several months. We're going to be really working on this process. So you could say this is a free course, as it were, in the creative process, going through the Creative's Handbook and what I call the 9 P's for powerful and effective creating. Because let's be honest, you want to be creating. You want to be putting your work out in the world. And not only do you want to put your work out in the world, you want to do it in a way that fulfills you, that serves others, that also helps you grow as a human being and as an artist. And so, this journey that we've chosen as creatives, as artists, is not one that is just something that you show up to. It's not something that when you do it well or when you feel good about it or when it receives acclaim or whether it's been distributed, released, published, produced, that's only one tiny, tiny part of what we do here. What we do is mostly not that. When, let's say, Hardball, The Girls of Summer, my documentary, the working on that was most of what it was. When I got my distribution deal, that was a flash in the pan. I got a phone call from Vertical Entertainment, and they said, we want to distribute your movie. And that was wonderful, but that was this tiny, tiny little moment. Everything else was the struggle with the raising the money. And then it was the getting a first cut together and realizing, oh my gosh, I don't have a movie here. This challenges all of the stuff that I had to go through with the failures, but also those successes of being out on the baseball diamond and filming and getting amazing interviews and, with people who, Kelsey Whitmore's in that movie, and she's the first woman in 70 years to play on a major league affiliated baseball team. Amazing stuff. But those are these tiny little pieces. The rest of it is the process, the work that we do. And so we're going to kind of go through some of that, through the ups, the challenges, the excitement of starting a project, the challenges that come when you get to that point where you think, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do next. So we're going to jump right in here and we're going to have a whole lot of fun. And we're going to be going through the Creative's Handbook starting right now. So welcome. If you are here and you are still listening, it means you want to create. You have something, a project, or maybe several projects that you really want to be working on, that you want to bring to fruition. Maybe it's something that you are really passionate about, or maybe it's something that you're just kind of curious what it would be like to go in and work on that project. It's possible that it's something you've been thinking about or mulling about for literally decades. And it could be something that's a brand new idea that's really living inside of you, but you want it to be something that you can share and bring out into the world. Something that other people will see, watch, hear, whether it's even only your mom. That's okay too. So now I got to tell you, I don't subscribe to this idea that there's a proven method, or that there are follow these 9 simple steps that are in my book, and then you will get there. I just don't believe in that, because this is a process that is a challenge. It is difficult, and we all find our own way. Of course, even though we're finding our own way, there are also processes and methods that help us get there quicker. Whether you're doing ballet, or whether you are learning guitar, or whether you're doing yoga, you can hurt yourself by holding yourself in the wrong way. I know somebody who's had neck issues for years that started from doing yoga improperly. Now, yoga is great for you, and it's a wonderful meditative physical practice. But without the right tools, without understanding some of the ways in which to hold your body, you can sometimes cause more harm than good. So we're going to go into what has been really effective for me in my creative life, and has also been enormously beneficial and helpful for many other people who I've either mentored or coached or taught along the way. Now, you are on a creative journey. And I always say the creative's journey is akin to the hero's journey. Now, if you realize that all of your favorite characters, whether in movies or books, they didn't have an easy go. Luke Skywalker, in order to be Luke Skywalker, had to have a dead mom, a dad who was Darth Vader, and then the people who raised him are killed. And that's just the beginning. It only kind of it gets worse from there. Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games, a dead dad, a crazy mom, and risking her life to save her sister. These are the challenges that heroes go through. And also if you're looking in real life, like Nelson Mandela didn't change South Africa overnight. He had to spend over 20 years in prison. That was the process of getting there. Now, sometimes as creatives, we think we have this thing of, I should be able to get there more quickly. I should finish this book. I should finish this movie. I should finish this album, this series of paintings, whatever it is. And if I'm not doing it quickly, I'm somehow failing. But you see, the creative process is like being a hero. And when we watch it in a movie, very often it's like, okay, those 7 years in the desert are a montage sequence. But in our lives, those are a real 7 years, 7 challenging, plodding years, as an example. So, it's a challenge. It is the creative process as the hero's journey are challenges that that take time, and that time is okay. So we're going to go through this, and we're going to have a lot of fun, because the reality is that, as I mentioned, I don't believe in proven methods, but I do kind of believe in one. And that is the method that you find that works for you, that you can prove to yourself through doing it regularly and engaging actively with it. So we're going to begin right now and jump into developing your new practice, or honing your practice, or seeing where there are cracks or challenges within your own practice that you can now use as that you can transform, basically, right? That you can transform this challenge into something that is part of your strength. You can take the weakness and turn it into a strength. You can take the poison, the difficulty, turn it into your medicine, into your power. So if you have seen this book or heard me talk before, I used to kind of talk about the 7 Ps for powerful and effective creating. But over time, I've made a few adjustments and separated a few pieces out from what used to be there. So I now have 9 Ps, but not a whole lot has changed. It's just the way it's been organized. And now the reality is that these 9 Ps for powerful and effective creating are actually exactly what you do in your life all the time in the things that you are successful at. If you've ever gone out and said, I need a job, and you've gone, or you applied for college and went, or you figured out how to, plan your vacation, you've actually gone through all of these steps. And those steps are, in short, purpose. Why am I doing this? Why is it important to me? Because what you're going to spend your time with has got to be important to you. You have to care. It has to matter in your life in order for you to put the time and energy into doing it. Same thing if you're going on vacation. Same thing if you're looking for a job, going to college. Then it's picking your project. This is obviously a little bit different, but once again, it's that whether it's why am I going to write this book? Why does it matter so much to me? Why am I going to make this movie, do this art installation? I know why it matters, and then what is it exactly that I'm going to do? And interestingly, that is not always what's clear. I want to go on vacation. Okay, well, where and why am I choosing this place? So there's the purpose, and then what is the specifics? Am I going to Iceland? Am I going to Germany? Am I going to South Africa? If I'm going to be, I have ideas for wanting to share an experience. I'm Adele, and I've gone through a breakup, and I am going to, what am I going to do? Am I going to do an album? Am I just going to do one song? Am I going to do a video piece? Am I going to write a book? Or even if you are clearly a musician, and therefore it's clear that you're going to do some type of musical piece. There are all sorts of different ways to do that. And then it's finding out what is going to be the best vehicle. What is the project? And then you have to plan to do it, right? It's a matter of getting the plan and figuring out how to do it. And once you have your plan, then there's preparation. If you've ever run a marathon, you want to do it. Your purpose is, I want to go see this part of the world, and I want to do it in a way that is healthy and engaging. So I am going to pick my project of running a marathon, and I'm going to do it at Mount Kilimanjaro, for example. Now I need to plan where am I going to, what are the steps that I'm going to, to do, what are all the things that I need to get together. And then once I know what those are, now I actually have to prepare. I'm actually going to have to go run. I'm going to have to set up the system that's going to work for me, right? I'm going to prepare by working out regularly, by running regularly. By preparing, I am sort of setting up the system that I'm going to use. And now preparation is very iterative, right? You might think, I worked with this woman once who was like, I want to make a graphic novel. I've been wanting to do it for 10 years. I'm going to draw every day. And I said, no, you're not going to draw every day. But that's okay. You go ahead and try and tell yourself that. And you can tell me that. And then we're going to check in and see how that works. Of course it doesn't work. You have a life. You got to figure out how things work. So it's kind of setting up that preparation. And then really your process begins now at this next step. And I used to say, now is where your process, but the reality is you're now putting your whole process, this whole thing is your process, your creative process, and you're putting it into practice. You have to show up and see what works. You're going to iterate. You're going to see that the idea that you had is going to be very different from the reality of what happens in your life, in your world, in your creative world. So you're going to practice, and through your practice is iteration and changing and seeing what works. Leading to the next P, which is what I call pleasure and leisure. Because you're doing all this work, you're going out, first of all, it has to be fun. You're going to be spending a lot of time doing it. If you're writing and you hate writing, it's going to be really hard to do it. If you're filming, but you hate organizing and getting all of these pieces together and going out, it's going to be really hard to do it. So there's pleasure within doing the work, and at the same time, there's also leisure for yourself when you're not doing the work. We can take this stuff so seriously that I think, oh my gosh, it is, the evening and I have to be writing or drawing or composing. And sometimes in the evenings, you need to stop and take a little break. You need to watch some Netflix. You need to go have a beer with the friends. It's this balance, because it can be very easy to fall into the trap of only watching Netflix, only watching your favorite shows, hanging out with your buddies, just chilling out on TikTok or Instagram in the evenings, letting your mind go numb. There's really a time for that. You need to have your leisure time. You need to enjoy what you're doing, and then you also need to step back and just chill out and have some fun. Of course, it's a balance, but you need that. And then there's pivot. And that is that as we get into our project, everyone will tell you no one's first draft is what the final draft really looks like. What you think you're going to do and what you end up doing is different. It doesn't have to be diametrically opposed, but it will be different. You're going to have to grow and evolve. If the thing you thought you were going to be doing is exactly what you had at the end, that's not art, that's accounting. At the beginning, you have these ideas and you start putting them together and you're building it. And through that process, you're going to be discovering so much that what you're doing has to evolve. And sometimes that pivot basically means making major changes. And sometimes it's this meandering discovery that's like, oh, I was going a little left and now I need to go a little bit right. There's these sort of minor pivots and changes. And then sometimes it's really major. I worked with a woman once who she really wanted to write this book. And once she got into writing it, she realized that she was writing it not to help other people to understand this thing that she had experienced and thought would help a lot of people. She was actually doing it just to heal herself. And so she needed to name it. And when she did, and she started, she said, you know what, I realized I don't need to do this. And then she got to open up for what really would come next for her as a creative person. All sorts of different ways of doing it. And then we have perseverance. Yes, this is a hard path that we've chosen. We love it. We hate it. We wrestle with it. It makes us stronger. It makes us happy. And it also can beat us down. And that's all part of it. It is persevering through it. And then lastly is patience. It is patience for what is going to come. I don't know what's going to come. I don't know when it's going to come exactly, how it's going to show up. Patience is where people get very confused. One thing is I'm going to be patient in order to start. And that's not where the patience is needed. Patience is that time of where we show up regularly, but we're patient for the outcome or how it's going to truly manifest in the world. And there you have it, the 9 Ps for powerful and effective creating. That's what we will be getting into. And as I mentioned, these are all things that you've done and honed very well for everything that you had success in your life, even as simple as putting food on the table and making sure that you and or your family has not starved to death. Pretty simple. Okay, so why do I think this has worked so well? Well, I've actually worked with many people who it's helped. Started out just working with sort of employees of mine and mentees of mine. Eventually has worked with clients and people who I've coached or consulted with, but it also worked for me. Creativity is the process of bringing something new into being, and it is a creative process. This is the process that I use to make, 9 narrative feature films, 8 documentaries, including 1 feature documentary, Hardball, the Girls of Summer. I did a series, a sitcom pilot that I wrote and set up in Kenya, countless short films, music videos, commercials. I toured Europe with my acapella trio and released a CD. I've launched a couple of blogs and podcasts. I founded a nonprofit organization, We Strive, a film festival. I have written a couple of books. And this is the process that I used in order to get there. So the process of effectively and powerfully creating is not one that generally comes easy. For those who have found success from the outside, it can be like, oh, they got so lucky or they're just talented. But on the inside, there was a lot of challenge and work and growth in order to get there. And the challenge is important. The challenge is actually what we want. If we wanted everything to be easy, we would not be doing this. If we wanted everything to be easy, we would play Go Fish or War with cards instead of, leveling up and playing Hearts or more challenging card games. Whatever it is, we just don't want things to be easy. We think we do, but we don't really. So we're going to touch on some of these the processes here now that lead to success, but success can really mean anything, and it means so many different things to so many different people, and it can probably mean so many different things to you at different points of your career or your project. And with that, starting on our next episode, we will really launch into the first P and talk about our purpose, why we're doing that. But in the meantime, if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, make sure to reach out to me, matthew@matthewctemple.com. For a limited number of people, if you're interested in doing a free one-on-one session with me, feel free to reach out, matthewctemple.com/book, as in book a time to meet with me. Whether or not I will have time, I can't say, but if you're interested, go ahead and reach out. I will do my very best to find a time to at least touch base with you to help this be a more successful process for you. Lastly, I will say that each week coming up, we'll have worksheets, and those worksheets will always be found in the show notes or available on the website. Any questions, comments, concerns, be in touch, matthew@matthewctemple.com. You can also find me on Instagram @MatthewCTemple or Facebook @MatthewCTempleOfficial. With that, have a great week, getting ready for diving right in to the 9 Ps for powerful and effective creating. See you next time. Tapping Creativity is brought to you in part by We Strive, a nonprofit organization that works to lead the world towards stronger, healthier, and more sustainable community. We Strive is currently at an exciting juncture in that coming out of the pandemic, it is in a place of looking to see how can it now, as a established organization, be of greatest support to the creative communities as well as communities who are striving in any way they know how to engage in co-creating a better world. If you're interested in learning more, visit westrive.org.